Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 ValleyML AI Expo. My name is George Murad, and I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker. We are excited to hear from experts in AI, ML, and data on an assortment of topics. First, I would like to thank our sponsors who helped make this event possible, along with all of you, our audience. Before we get started, here's some general information. Please submit your questions through Wova's Q&A feature. Live Q&A session starts after this presentation. Please find live Q&A subsession at the bottom of this session page. Our speaker for this session is Marie Smith. Marie has been involved in the IT industry for over 20 years, helping nearly 50 media, tech, and wellness companies. Maria later brought her talents to Warner Brothers in the areas of advertising, sales, dynamic and automated operations, and marketing. Marie is currently pursuing a JD and PhD in legal informatics from Stanford University. Marie currently serves as the Chief Information Officer of Data 360. Data 360 utilizes a unique data modeling, reporting, and messaging solution powered by AI and machine learning to reduce operation costs of their clients. For this session, Marie will be speaking on the 3 ways to build profitable relationships using AI and big data. And with that, welcome Marie Smith.
Hi, my name is Marie. I'm the CIO and co-founder of Data 360. And thank you to ValleyML for inviting us to present this topic, which focuses on a new perspective on AI, 3 ways to build profitable relationships using AI and big data. And those 3 ways we're going to talk about today are APIs, natural language processing, and natural language understanding. So it kind of starts with 2 worlds, right? There's the world of the past and the world of the present. We're on this cusp of a new understanding in business. The first one is, the first part of that transition is business intelligence versus data science. So in the past, we've talked a lot about how businesses can analyze the artifacts of the past, determine what happened, and that our past determines the future. However, now we have a lot of data artifacts that are not contingent on a business's past, but on the present of analyzing various data sources from the world at large, and then making decisions based on those data sources. And some of those data sources include APIs. So where you talk about what will happen, what should I do? And then we talk about what is happening in the world relative to those strategies. And then we can perform predictive and prescriptive analyses. We can look at patterns, correlations, and models. Or we can look at things on the fly, but it's not strictly relegated to the past of a business's history or operations. It's also looking at how that business and its strategy fit into the larger world of data and what is happening with their customers and in the market in general. And so what does that look like? It's like just getting information out of a fire hose, right? So getting information off the internet is like taking a drink from a fire hydrant. It's always updating, it's always available. We know this from the front end experience, right? We know this the minute a tweet comes out, or the minute someone posts something controversial, or the minute someone passes away. We have instant gratification of data flowing all around the world and telling us this news. Well, the same happens for every single topic in every single area of the world, and every single way known to man, right? So there are just tons of data fire hoses happening all over the place. And a lot of that data is available via APIs. So why all this emphasis on APIs? APIs are the sort of the back entrance, the back door, the backstage of the internet, and they're able to give you access to data in such a way that you can not just rely on your own understanding or your own private data stores. You can rely on, like I said, the market at large. So some examples out there of APIs, there's Skyscanner flight searches, there's weather maps, There's Yahoo Finance, which we're all familiar with if we're older. There's API football, cocktail databases, you name it. There are data sources for everything. And those data sources can really help you grow your business in substantial ways using, in conjunction with natural language processing, natural language understanding. So it basically is like looking at the matrix, right? So it's big data, right? And big data means it's information everywhere. And so essentially when you get a big data feed, it is coming at you, in that same way. The fire hose, like the matrix, right? It's just trickling down, it's coming in every 10th of a second, every minute, right? And then the capturing it is the actual API itself. So that's the application programming interface. So instead of you just looking at it, it looks cool in a movie format, it really looks like charts and graphs and things that are captured in tables, and then you can actually then use those for your analyses and for developing products and services and using it with natural language processing and natural language understanding. So these are the types of tables you're looking at, right? So they have attributes of different sorts. They have IDs from the source you get them from. They have who published them. They have different kinds of information, right? All APIs are not alike. There are many different kinds that are used for many different reasons. So you need to be conversant in what APIs are actually relevant to your business, and then you can begin to use them in your natural language processing and natural language understanding applications. So APIs have grown quite a bit. And so how many are there? There are over 25,000 APIs now in the market, and at Data 360, we can access all of them. And so we can help you sort through all those different things. But if you have a dev team, if you have a data science team, if you have a business analysts, all of these groups can learn how to access APIs if they don't already have access. And there are many other tools, thousands and thousands of tools that can actually help you manage and collate and correlate APIs, which I won't get into this presentation because it's a lot of information. But there are tons and tons of ways to access this. So once you get the right expertise in place, you can access them and do some amazing things. You can find APIs in a lot of different places. So we saw earlier it was a Rapid API, which is available. There's also Programmable Web, which can give you tools. But you can actually just go to Google, type in any topic, and type in API, and voila, you have instant big data ready for you to begin to utilize in your applications. So APIs in the real world, what do they look like? They look like unstructured data. So internally, if you're in the e-commerce business, structured data looks like product IDs and your pricing data, your customer account data, right? The stuff in your CRM, the stuff in your ERP, the stuff in your data lakes, data warehouses, right? Those are all structured data sources when they reference your products, your services, and your customers, right? Healthcare is patient forms, medical insurance data, medical billing data, banking, it's financial transactions, customer account data. But APIs service up other things, like consumer behavior and spending patterns, customer service satisfaction reviews, right? X-ray, MRIs, doctor notes, treatment recommendations. They are unstructured, but available in such a way that you can access them and then begin to process them, right? Call logs, web logs, all those fun things, right? So you can generate these things internally. You can also look at them externally from third-party providers, for example, that you might use for your call center, for audio video communications that you have in your ecosystem. But also even then further out, videos on YouTube, videos on Vimeo, videos on Zoom calls, conference symposiums, things like that. So there's all this unstructured data around that can be analyzed and can be accessed for your applications. So then once you have that data, this is where we get into the natural language processing systems. You can also use it for machine learning, vision, speech, planning, robotics. We're just going to talk about NLP and NLU today. Not so much about the rest, but you can see there's a wide variety of different processing systems you can do with this data. So you want to expand your repertoire beyond your own data source and then start to look at how do third party or even secondary data sources, so data sources you have with other people you're in transaction with, but also third parties who you don't have a transaction with, but relationship to the data or to the objects. How do you use that in such a way that you begin to create smarter applications, more efficient applications? So let's get to exploring that. So natural language processing and natural language generation, which I'm also not going to touch too much on today, are really two ways that AI and ML are complemented so that big data can be powered up. So a lot of people reference AI for just like chatbots and your typical sort of search engine applications or data mining, things like that. But there are many other kinds of applications that can be developed and can be used for bringing up more profit for your business. So just a quick primer on NLP and NLU. So NLP stands for natural language processing, and it's a subset of AI that's basically there to understand natural language. So it processes a large amount of natural language data and then it derives insights and information. And natural language understanding, or NLU, is a subtopic of NLP, which basically is interpreting natural language, deriving meaning, identifying context, and drawing insights. So some examples of NLP versus NLU. So with NLP, the idea is to break down the natural language text into smaller and more manageable chunks. It can be analyzed by machine learning algorithms to find relationships, dependencies, context, and various chunks of information. And NLU basically enables the machine to understand the sentences with different words that may have sort of the same underlying question. So essentially, it can determine context, right? So here's some examples. So NLP and NLU working together could tell you that how is the weather today? Is it going to rain today? Do I need to take my umbrella today? Is the same context, right? Which is you're looking for the weather forecast. So the machine would be able to interpret all three of those things together to know the context is the weather forecast. That's what you're looking for the answer. So NLP plus NLU can answer those topics and then basically help you understand that it's just one question actually. So what are all the questions that basically mean the same thing with different words? NLP and NLU working together can also determine the difference between the context of how a word can have many different meanings. So for example, the banks will be closed for Thanksgiving and the river will overflow the banks during floods, right? So banks, meaning financial institutions, is the first thing that it's mentioning, which is talking about being closed for the holidays versus a river bank, right? So NLP plus NLU can figure that out. It can determine the difference in the context based on the sentence and based on the type of information that's being used in that sentence to know what it actually means. So this kind of task is called disambiguation. And basically it's under the NLU umbrella, which makes sure the machine understands the two different ways that different sentences use those words, bank, what bank means. So once we have NLP and NLU in there, we can do a couple different things, right? So NLP basically can parse words, stop word removal, do parts of speech, so tag parts of speech and give it meaning. It can do tokenization, do many more things. And natural language understanding can interpret the natural language, derive meaning, identify context, and draw insights. So together, it tells you what, so NLP is like the what, and the NLU is the rest of who, the where, the why, and the how, right? So if you take those two together, you're able to then take all this information, your first party information, the second party information you have with another party, and your third party information, and then be able to put it together in such a way that you can have new context, right? So if you don't have an engineering department already exploring these models and putting together these models, you're already losing. I can tell you that this is the hottest area that's happening out there, which is uh, going to save you a ton of money. So once you set up your APIs with NLP, you can save money, right? And so that's why you want to invest in this discipline. And saving costs means more profit, right? So what are some examples of that? So what that is really called is this one called cognitive computing. So if you look at cognitive computing, there are many, many examples out there. But for example, this is one from IBM that talks about how transformational technologies can bring different incomes in insurance. And so we can understand natural language, then adapt and learn, and then generate hypotheses. Well, this is important in insurance because we want to reduce claims. We want to detect fraud. We want to also look at how to best support clients and things like that. So understanding language, understanding what is spoken, understanding what's in a claim, understanding all these different things are happening in the insurance industry because, again, we want to save costs. Healthcare. Healthcare is another big data application, right? And so there's different ways to look at how to work with healthcare data that is unstructured and be able to put it into a useful application that can save costs and make more profit. So there's 6 different ways in this particular example. We talk about building an ecosystem, which is about effective medical practices. You can increase awareness and be able to put together prioritization of health initiatives, both globally and locally. You can support providers and work with user-friendly support systems, improve outcomes, right? So you can model more impact, right? And there's a whole system around impact modeling that can be applied to APIs, NLP, and NLUs. We're doing that at Data 360 with a few different clients in terms of tech accessibility and things like that. Support research. You can look at beyond genomics and basically get better diagnostic tools, treatment, improved outcomes, and reduce costs. And you can also do work in terms of transforming data and information into enhanced and efficient care, right? So that's kind of the flip side of improved outcomes, right? So we want to look at effective medical practices, we can look at improved outcomes, and we can look at enhanced and efficient care all at the same time because the models are designed to begin to process those things, right? And then lastly, we can look at supportive self-care. So how do we help our clients get access to themselves, right? So the machine has to be able to understand how that client actually talks and what that client talks about and be able to enhance that intake process that would also be done with a coach or a medical consultant or a nurse or a doctor. So being able to supplement that experience also will be able to help create better outcomes, less hospital visits, more profitability for the hospital in terms of overall operations. And there are many other industries, right? So besides healthcare and insurance, there's banking, there's communication, media, entertainment, there's manufacturing and natural resources, transportation, education, retail, and wholesale. There's just tons and tons of applications at cognitive computing. So we're back at the Wild Wild West everywhere. We can do amazing new things using these 3 things together. So that's our presentation for the day. Data 360 helps non-technical business users learn to use advanced technologies and build their ideal communities with our low-code, no-code system, which saves up to 90% of operational expenses. And we're a low-cost alternative to social media groups, online paid advertising, traditional tech stacks, and traditional websites. We also build advanced software integration systems and CRM systems. And we're excited to get to know you. Please feel free to reach out via the ValleyML conference and beyond on social media. Bad data costs the U.S. nearly 3 trillion users, 3 trillion in losses every year. Nearly 90 million workers and 73 businesses are technically illiterate. These problems need to be fixed now. So we are here to help with our big data and ML solutions. feel free to reach out. Don't feel ashamed. We're with you and we're here to help. So nice to meet you. Thank you so much. Please reach out to us at support@data360.solutions and have a great day.
Thank you, Maria, again for starting this session, live Q&A, one of our sessions for the day. And thank you for an amazing video. And I love what you talked about for not technical. That's what your business offers for not technical people. But before we start, I want to thank all our sponsors and all the attendees for this conference, and mainly as well as ValleyML for hosting this Expo 2021. With that said, I have a question for you. So let's start. What are the prerequisites to start in this industry?
And then Marie, I'm sorry, I think you're on mute.
Oh, there we go. Really, if you get a good foundation in Excel, and you learn, Excel is like the basics, like the kindergarten, the elementary school of data, right? And so you can do basic charts and graphs, which are called analyses or visualizations, and you can begin to understand what it means to manipulate data, take in data, create different formulas, create different ideas of how data can be presented, and how it can be analyzed. And I would say Excel is probably or Google Sheets if you're a Google person. Is really the very beginning, then getting advanced in those skills and then moving on to other table-based structures, data structures.
That's good. That's good. I think a lot of people know how to use Excel, so that's a good prerequisite. We have a question coming in from one of the audience. Using AI to build relationships, does it make the AI company reliable to damages in situations where relationships fall?
No, so it's like almost similar to social media, right? Where the social media or this AI is responsible for or offers the opportunity for connection and offers the opportunity for a transaction, but it doesn't mandate it. So it's only the users, just like any other technology, have the ability to opt out, and they have the ability to say, no, I don't want to talk to this person anymore. And you can block them or move them around any way you see fit through any of the technologies, right? So the mechanisms of communication don't change. It's just the way that people connect and the accuracy of the connections is what changes.
I see. Good. Well, we have another question from another attendee. How big data combined is building profitable insights? So I think the emphasis here on the insights from the big data, how those insights generates profit.
Yeah, so the trick to insights is how you model the data, right? So part of it is, and I say part of it's how you model data, part of it's how much data you can aggregate, right? And so you have to kind of have, it's like that phrase of you have to work with the end in mind.
Correct.
So you have to sort of say, okay, look, here's what I want to achieve. Now, what resources are out there that may be able to provide me with the results that I'm looking for? And then let's see how we can model those results. And so you have to have a experimentation mindset, but you also have to have some models in mind. So you have to become familiar with how data models work and what those models are. And then you have to have experimentation frameworks in mind, right?
Right.
So you still have to have, start to think like a scientist, right? And provide hypotheses and provide different ways to look at how things work. Because it's very different if you look at data from a aspect of regression or an aspect of cognitive science or an aspect of behavioral economics or an aspect of psychology or advertising. I mean, there's all kinds of different methods and ways to experiment and look at data. So you really have to know the context of what you're, think about it through the context of what you're doing.
Right. Indeed. So I guess we should have asked from a consumer perspective, and especially those, let's say, consumer and small businesses, how do they start, or where do they start from, and how much does it cost to implement something like this?
Yeah, so I love RapidAPI.ai. I love programmable web. Programmable web is particularly good because you can look at all the API data sources, and it actually has some really good lessons. It has like a little API university, tells you what API 101, 102. It takes you through all the different lessons of kind of really understanding, like, how do you use this data? Where's it come from? How do you take it in and out and things like that? And then also, and that's free, which is wonderful. All right.
Indeed.
It's just your time.
Exactly.
And then once you have those models, then it's a matter of what kinds of systems do you want to build. So I always recommend, you can look at different cloud computing systems. So you can look at the AWS systems, you can look at Google Cloud systems or Microsoft Azure systems in terms of processing data, how many different ways it can be processed and visualized. And they have both the cloud side and the sort of prosumer side. So if you're looking at prosumer side, there's Google Data Studio, also free. Power BI, not super expensive. Used to be a thing called Business Objects a long time ago for all those older people in the audience. And if you're working with the Salesforce ecosystem, Tableau, or Einstein, and then if you're working with AWS, they have they do have a data visualization. I always forget what it's called because it's not super popular, but it does work great, and it's actually super inexpensive. I think it's maybe like 5 cents an hour or something ridiculous like that.
Right. So we can claim, I guess, for those people, like you say, the not technical people, the barrier to entry is very low. It's not something to be intimidated by when getting into this. Great. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Yeah, this is a question that's coming. How do you gauge success?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is, being able to do 3 main parts, right? So one is being able to obtain the data that you need to provide the analyses, right? So big data is exactly what it says, it's big. So you have to have enough volume, right? And you have to have, so big data has different qualities to it. I won't go into like all the super wonderful terms, but there's the V's, right? So it's like volume, veracity, velocity. So the reason why APIs are important as a data source is because there's enough volume there for you to come up with what is called beyond a statistical mean. It means that it can be very accurate, right? Because you have a lot of different instances of the same things that then you can begin to analyze. So making sure you have a lot of data. 2, success looks like being able to create predictable, meaningful results in a repeatable way. So being able to show that the system you're building is creating the same results for the same kinds of transactions or the same kinds of modeling over and over again. And the third thing is understandable, right? It has to be able to be understood by someone else besides yourself.
Correct. Indeed.
And as many people as possible, right? So that's about accessibility. So you want to make sure that you have some accessibility, and then of course that includes like diversity and inclusion and all those things. But you want to be able to make sure that it's accessible. I'm one of those engineers. I'm sort of a hippie engineer, so I say do no harm is also included in that as well.
Yeah, I guess that's a good segue for a second question. Is like, how do you customize it to people's own model and the domain size of it, I should say? How does that relate?
Yeah, so customizing based on, like you said, I mean, like the industry that people are in.
Indeed.
Yeah, so you know, the great thing about APIs. Also, I'm gonna be a cheerleader for APIs today. is that you can type in any subject in the world and put API next to it, and there's an API for it. There's something somewhere, right? In some kind of industry. Because the fact of the matter is, us as human beings, we can't help ourselves. All we do is create data artifacts every day, all day.
Indeed.
Data artifacts are us talking, there are pictures, there are photos, there are analogies, there's papers, symposiums. There's even this conference. This conference is just a big old wad of data artifacts
Indeed.
around AI, right? So you can customize it just based on the source of data you're using. And then also you have to really understand I'm going to use two science words, right? The ontology and the taxonomy of your industry. You have to understand how your industry is constructed, what is considered valid and not valid, what's considered authoritative and not authoritative, what's considered authentic, and things like that. So you have to know kind of like, where are the boundaries of your industry and what is considered true and false, what's considered good and bad, all that good stuff. Because when you take in that data, you need to be able to clean it. And you
Indeed.
need to be able to decide what can be included and what cannot be included in your analysis.
Correct.
So making sure that you have the idea, right? So in order to do analyses really well in an industry, you have to know that industry super well, which means either you know that industry from experience or you study.
Correct. Indeed.
Right.
So I guess that's a natural progression to the question is, what type of data do you work with? I mean, like structured, semi-structured, unstructured. So what's your insight on that part?
Yeah, I'm an all of the above kind of gal.
Right. The more the better.
Give me all the data.
Indeed. Indeed.
But I do like to work with unstructured data a lot because it provides a lot of insights. But I find that our clients at Data 360, you know, they're looking for us to take their unstructured data and turn it into structured data.
Interesting.
So that they can make sense of the mess they've made.
Right.
Whatever it happens to be.
Indeed.
Right. So we're kind of treated like doctors, right? So they kind of say,
right.
Hey, how can you help us with a new strategy, or can you help us with a problem, or can you help us understand this, or we can't produce this report because, and it's usually because they have a bunch of unstructured data that no one's made any sense out of, and they don't know how, they don't have the talent or the in-house capability to make sense of it on their own.
And time, most importantly. This is what
And
a
they
lot
don't
of people
and they
suffer.
don't have the time. Yeah,
Indeed.
no time, no resources.
Time. Indeed. Well, you know, kind of like ending it with the final questions, but more at a personal level. So what do you offer, you know, other than AI-driven engine does not, like you, the 360?
The Data 360, we have fundamentally different packages to essentially help you do all these great things in terms of data analysis and provide results to meet goals. So we provide strategic insights. We help you optimize web pages. We help you optimize your social media. We help you do software integrations. You're trying to move data from one place to another. We also help you develop strategies in terms of the AI being able to tell you what to do and what not to do, which is called predictive and prescriptive intelligence. We do competitive intelligence, market intelligence, company
That's intelligence. Great. So, it's a 360 indeed.
It is a 360-degree service, and so it really focuses on, you know, where, you know, things that traditional market research, traditional intelligence firms, and things that where it's difficult for them to do, because big data is not something that most firms know how to process.
Right.
Right. And so it does produce different kinds of results. It often produces more accurate results, and it produces them at a lower cost than a traditional research firm or a traditional consultant.
Right. Well, I think with that, let me see if there's one more question coming in from the audience. I don't see any other questions. So I think it's a good time to end it. So thank you for your time. Thank you for this great Q&A with you. And thank you again for your time for providing the content. And thank you, ValleyML, for hosting this. With that, I think we conclude our session. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dinos. Thanks, ValleyML.
Thank you.